Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 6, Text 25. Shanai Shane Ruparamit Buddhya Druti Gritaya Atma Samstambana Krutva Na Kinchit Api Chintayet.
Hare Krishna. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else.
Text 26. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yetad atma nieva vasham nayet.
From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
Text 27. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam opeti shantarajasam brahma bhutamakalmasam.
The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to the past deeds.
Text 28. Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi vigatakalmasaha sukhena brahma samsparsam atyantam sukhamashnute.
Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord.
Text 29. Sarvabhuta stamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha.
A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the Supreme Lord, the same Supreme Lord everywhere.
Text 30. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati.
For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me.
Text 31. Sarvabhuta stitam yo mam bhajati ekatvam astitaha sarvata vartamanopi sa yogi mai vartate.
Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances.
Text 32. Atma pamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sa yogi paramo mataha.
He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna.
Text 33. Arjuna uvacha Yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalat vatstitim stiram.
Arjun said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady.
Text 34. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadradam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoreva sudushkaram.
For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind.
Text 35. Shri Bhagavan Vacham Asamsayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Konteya Vaigragyena Chagruhyate.
Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty arm, son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment.
Text 36. Asamyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi Vashyatmana tu yatatta sakyo vaptum upayataha.
For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion.
Text 37. Arjuna uvacha ayati shraddhayo peto yoga chalita manasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati.
Arjun said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection?
Can I find Zoom? I don't know where to find Zoom.
Text 38.
Are you on your page or on my page? What's the background like? Is it the Ganges?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just going to try and
You've got to go and take one. Go to the bottom.
Kachino baya viprastas china brahmivanashyati apratisto mahabaho vimudo brahmanapati.
O mighty arm, Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere?
Text 39. Etan me samshayam Krishna chetum arhasi ase sataha dwadanya samsayasyasya chetana hi upapadyate.
This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt.
Text 40. Shri Bhagavanu Vacham Parthaneva Namudra Parthanaiveha Namudra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krut Kaschit durgatim tata gacchati.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil.
Text 41. Prapya punya kratam lokan ushitva shashvati samaha suchinam sri matam gehe yoga brasto vijayate.
The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planet of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy.
Text 42. Atava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam etadi durlabhadaram loke janma yadidrisham.
Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world.
Text 43. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labhate porvadehikam yatate cha tato bhuyaha samsiddho kurunandana.
On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru.
Text 44. Purvabhyasena teneva riyate hi avashopi saha jignasurapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate.
By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures.
Text 45. Prayatnat yata manastu yogi samshuddha kilvisaha aneka janma samsiddhas tato yati param gatim.
And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately achieving perfection after many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal.
Text 46. Tapasvebhyo diko yogi jnanibhyo mato dikaha karmibhyascha diko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna.
A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjun, in all circumstances, be a yogi.
Text 47. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena tur atmana Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo mataha.
And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you, Seema Mataji and Pinky Mataji. Thank you for your recitations. Wonderful. right. Just 1 minute. Let me get my screen. Okay. I think you can see my screen now.
Yes, Mataji, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So today we are going to do verse number 29 from chapter 6. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 verse 29. Can't see it very clearly here. Just give me 1 minute. That's better. Sarvabhutastam atmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Does anybody want to read the purport?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay, please go ahead. I couldn't see the name.
A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as Supersoul, Paramatma. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmana. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence, either a dog or a Brahmana. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the super soul. One who is not factually situated in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows. I'll just read the English bit. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Super Soul is always in every living being. Thank you.
There's one more page if you want to continue reading.
Yeah. It's just disappeared. Okay, it's back now. Outwardly, also every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord. As will be explained in the 7th chapter, the Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy.
Sorry. I've done something. Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, yeah.
Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations according to the results of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Chetna Mataji. That was really very clear. Thank you very much. Before we continue, we'll just say our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshadarine. Okay, thank you for joining this evening, and let's look at the instructions that we get from this particular verse and the purport of Srila Prabhupada. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that the Lord in his Paramatma, he says the Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmana. And we've studied this on this forum and otherwise, that as the super soul, the Lord is with each and every living entity. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says this so many times, that he is with the individual soul and he accompanies the individual soul in all circumstances. He is with everybody. Prabhupada, commenting on this verse in his lecture, he said, one of the comments that he made was that when somebody reads this or hears something like this, sometimes it is interpreted as that all beings are Krishna. You see, because in the verse, Krishna is saying that he observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. So sometimes a person may interpret that, everybody is Krishna. So therefore, there is no need for me to worship Krishna, because everybody is Krishna. So a lot of people then think that I would rather perform all kinds of charitable activities like build hospitals or, give in charity, and in fact, worship all living entities. You see? So therein lies this sorry, can you all see my screen still?
Yes, Mataji.
I don't know, for some reason I got a message. Yeah, I got a message saying you've been logged out and something like that. So I was just wondering. Right, okay. So the point being made is that Krishna is saying here that he is in every living entity. And we will see in the next slide that, yes, everybody emanates from Krishna. We know that. And everybody is part and parcel of Krishna. But that does not mean that everybody has become Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 7, Krishna says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shastrani indrani prakriti sthani karshati. He says that the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. So yes, he is present as the super soul in each and every living entity. So when the idea is that we have to see Krishna in everybody. So like I've written there, seeing Krishna in everybody, but not seeing everybody as Krishna. And Prabhupada uses this very nice and funny analogy. Yes, when you see a cat or a dog or other living entities, you understand and you realize that within them, Krishna resides as the Paramatma, as the super soul. But that does not mean that the cat or the dog is Krishna. And Prabhupada also uses this analogy that, we are being taught to look equally. Pandita Samadarshana. So you are taught to look equally. You're taught to identify, recognize, and accept the presence of Krishna in every living entity. That does not, however, mean that when we see a tiger, we say, oh, here is Krishna. Let me embrace the tiger. See? And in Prabhupada's, words, he says, that is rascaldom, that is rascal, that, thinking like that. So the whole point is that you see Krishna in everybody, but everybody is not Krishna. They are just part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna expands himself as the super soul, and he is present in each and every living entity. So the idea is that when you realize that and you see that, you develop compassion. You develop compassion for every living entity, be it a cat, a dog, a snake, or another human being, because the super soul is present. The reason why they are in different bodies is because, as we know, of their different karmas. So the true yogi, he knows that the super soul is present in everybody, and that is why he disregards what the external body may be, and he has compassion for that living entity. And obviously, you cannot not take into account that the soul, although different, is right now engaged in a different material body. So you obviously treat them in that way. So when you show compassion to, let's say, an animal, you can show compassion by distributing prasad. Obviously not by embracing the animal.
God, did he dance in ecstasy, or did he call in for his goblin associates?
I've got some, I just need to mute some people. Okay, that's better. I would just request everybody to please keep yourselves on on mute, because otherwise it disturbs us. So yeah, so we understand that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in this very famous verse, he is saying, 10.8, he says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Everything and everybody emanates from Krishna. We know that. And that is the understanding, that we should be able to see Krishna everywhere. Like, when we see even inanimate things like, the sofa, the table, or the chair, or whatever it is, everything eventually emanates from Krishna. So the point is that because we understand that everything emanates from Krishna, the yogi or the Krishna conscious person will try to see everything in relation to Krishna. Krishna is not different to somebody who's standing in front of you, because he's saying that I am in each and every living entity as the super soul. And we've heard this analogy being used many times. This is from the Upanishad, where it is said that this is exactly like how there are two birds on a tree. The soul and the super soul are living on the same tree, right? As two birds living on a tree, like that. The soul and the super soul exist in each and every living entity. And a yogi is able to understand that the soul, because it is part and parcel of Krishna, it may be in an animal's body or in a tree's body or whatever body, but the soul is non-different. Each and every soul is same. It is always eternal. It is full of knowledge. It is full of bliss, right? Okay. Prabhupada in his purport also talks about the difference between the soul and the super soul. And I was very lucky when I was doing my research, I found this slide. His Grace Radhesham Prabhu, actually, when he's talking on this verse, he uses this particular slide and he gives very clear distinction that, the soul and the super soul. And most of us already know it. The soul is, okay, he's the Jivatma. The God is, he's a controller, he's the Paramatma. The soul is really, really small, and the super soul is huge. Very important fact that Prabhupada talks about is that the soul is only aware of one's own body. but the super soul is aware of everyone and everything. And here we can understand this much better by using this analogy. You know, when a king sometimes, let's say he is given 1 acre of land to all the farmers in his kingdom. Now, all these different farmers have got different crops on their land. Some may have, you know, like, let's look at this picture also. Yeah, here we've got farmers. Some may have, you know, rice, and some may have wheat, and some may have some other crops. But the point is that the one farmer may not know what is being grown on the other farm, but the king is aware of all of it. The reason being that the king is the controller, he is the owner, so he knows all of it. The same way, the body is called as the field, because this is the field where the soul comes in and uses this field, the body, in order to perform different activities. Some people may not see the difference between the soul and the super soul, but the devotee knows that the soul is always the servitor and the super soul always is the master. You see? So then sometimes the question is that how is it that this one super soul, you know, people get confused that how is it that Krishna is in each and everybody, but still he remains full, total, absolute. And that is what we need to understand, that Krishna can manifest himself, can expand himself in so many different entities. But that does not mean that he reduces, he still remains one complete person. So a devotee, a Krishna conscious person, a yogi is able to see the difference and understand the difference between a soul and a super soul, right? And that is what Prabhupada is talking about. However, some people may forget this simply because remembrance and forgetfulness also comes from Krishna. Krishna gives what a person desires. If he desires to forget Krishna, if he desires to forget that there is a super soul, then Krishna will give him that forgetfulness, because that's what he's asking for, you see. So here it says that, Prabhupada in the purport says that Krishna conscious yogi is able to see everybody with an equal vision. And why is he able to do that? Because he is able to see Krishna in everyone's heart. Again, we can refer to the verse in the Bhagavad Gita where 18.61, where it says, Ishvara sarva bhutana vridishanni, I forget, tishtati, Arjuna tishtati. So he's saying that I as a super soul, I am in each and everybody. So a yogi, this particular verse is talking about that how the yogi is able to see. The Sanskrit terms here it says is sarva bhutastham atmanam. So he can see the super soul situated in all beings, right? And how he's able to do that is because, again, in the purport, Prabhupada explains this very beautifully. Because he is seeing the living entities, although they are in different situations because of their fruitive activities, they still remain the servants of God. And Prabhupada says this, that while in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, whereas when it is in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme. In whatever situation, he is the servant, right? And we've done this about the different energies of the Lord, but I'll just repeat it. So as we know, we've got the material energy of the Lord, the spiritual energy, and the marginal. The marginal energy is us living entities. The material energy is this world that we have, and we know what the spiritual energy is, where Krishna resides. As living entities, as marginal energies, we have the choice whether we want to be under the control of the material energy or whether we want to be under the control of the spiritual energy. We have that choice. We don't have the choice that we will ever be independent, because we will always be under the control. And again, a very wonderful and easy to understand analogy. Let's say that you're working in the home office, or you're working in some government organization as a civil servant, as an employee of the government. You are under the control of the government, and you are answerable to the government when you are working. On the other hand, we have prisoners who have not followed the rules and regulations of the government and have been put in prison houses. They also are being controlled by the government, right? So whether we are law-abiding civil servants working for the government, we are being controlled by the government, or we are somebody who's broken the law, we are still being controlled by the government. Both is based on our activities, right? And the yogi understands this, that this is based on activities. The actual self, the soul the soul still remains part and parcel of Krishna eternally. So it is only under the influence that it changes. And that is why a Krishna conscious person, a yogi, can see everybody with equal vision, because he understands that the inequalities that are there are only in relation to the material body. Otherwise, there is no inequality. And that is why he reaches a stage where he is able to see Sarvabhutastam Atmanam. He is able to see Krishna in each and every living entity. And in conclusion, Prabhupada says, in either case, the living entity is the servant of God. And this vision of equality is perfect in a person who is Krishna conscious, because he understands this, he can see this. So in summary, let's look at this. It says that the yogi who has achieved samadhi, he realizes that the Paramatma is all-pervading, which is Sarvabhutastam. He also knows that all living beings, including the demigods like Shiva or Indra or Varun or Agni, all of them, they are under the shelter of Krishna. And that's the second line of the verse where it says, Sarva Bhutani Atmani. And the final thing is that the Paramatma is without prejudice. He's equal to all. Samadarshana. The Paramatma, the super soul, is equal to all. But why we see differences is because of our own karmas. It's not because of the Paramatma being, biased. That doesn't happen, right? And thus, we have to always remember that we are never alone. Krishna is with us as the super soul. We are not even for one moment left on our own. Whatever we may be doing, Krishna is always with us. And if we reach that stage where we are able to see everybody with that kind of vision, then that is the stage which in this verse, Krishna is saying is the stage of a yogi, of a person who has reached samadhi. And again, like we discussed earlier, that yes, seeing everybody with equal vision does not mean that you start to treat everybody that here is Krishna. This is the problem that sometimes happen, wherein when we talk to people and we are talking about our philosophy and we say that Krishna is in everybody, sometimes the comeback that we get is that if Krishna is in everybody, then why do we need to have temples? Why do we need to pray to Krishna? Why can't we just treat everybody as Krishna? Yes, you can do that, but there is still a difference. Krishna is in everybody as an expansion. And it is wonderful that you can treat everybody like that and see Krishna in everybody. And that is why in ISKCON, in our Krishna conscious philosophy, we address each other as Prabhu, because we are addressing the super soul in everybody. But we also must understand that Krishna in his original two-armed form is still, the complete whole. And we have to surrender to Krishna. We have to take shelter of Krishna and understand that, there is a difference between the soul and the super soul. So as such, there are different stages of how a perfect yogi will understand his vision and his action. There are actually 4 different stages. I don't want to go too much into detail because the next verses cover those things. But we've understood this stage where he's seeing everybody as same. There's other stages where he understands the soul and super soul. He can understand that, there is spirit and there is matter. And the highest stage is when he can see everything. Everything that he sees around him is Krishna. And we can take the example, obviously Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, but he has come as a devotee. And we can take the example from his life where he had reached this stage where he could not see anything but Krishna. So when he would see any river, it would remind him of Yamuna. When he would see any mountain, it would remind him of Govardhan. So like that, he was seeing everything in relation to Krishna. And that is the highest stage of a yogi. But in the meantime, as sadhakas, for us, what we need to understand is that try to see the super soul in every living entity. And a very short story of, or a pastime, which is there in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It is from Chaitanya Leela, and this is a story about, maybe a lot of you must have heard it, but this is a story about Vasudev Vipra, a Brahmin called Vasudev. And this pastime happened when Mahaprabhu was on his tour in South India. When he was on his tour in South India, he stayed over at the residence of a Brahmin called Kurma Brahmin. And hearing about that Mahaprabhu is there, another very, very elevated Brahmin called Vasudev wanted to take darshan of Mahaprabhu, and he reached the residence of Kurma Brahmin. But by the time he reached there, Mahaprabhu had already left. And hearing that Mahaprabhu has left and that he cannot see him, this Brahmin, Vasudev Vipra, fell unconscious. Mahaprabhu, as a super soul, like I said, is in everybody's heart. And he came back and he hugged this Vasudev Vipra. So here we're getting 2 things out of the story. The fact that as a super soul, Krishna is aware of everything that is happening to each of us. And the other fact, which I will come to, is about the compassion of a Vaishnava. This Vasudev Vipra was suffering from leprosy. And his skin was so bad, he had wounds all over his body. And in the wounds, there were maggots, there were worms living in his body. But he was such a compassionate person that if a worm fell out of his body, he actually picked it up and put it back, thinking that if it is out of my body, right now it is surviving because it is eating, my flesh. If it is out of my body, it will die. That was the kind of compassion that Vasudev Vipra had. Anyways, the story goes that when Mahaprabhu, seeing the condition, came back, he hugged Vasudev Vipra. And as soon as he hugged him, his body was completely cured of leprosy. So he was cured of his distress on 2 levels, his emotional distress of not being able to get darshan of Mahaprabhu, and his physical distress of having leprosy and being eaten up literally by the worms, the maggots. So he was cured like that. There is more to this story, but okay, I'll just say it because it is so wonderful. After all this happened, Vasudev Vipra was praying to the Lord. He could not fathom the compassion of the Lord. He was thinking, who am I? I'm just a nobody, but the Lord has come for answering my prayers. He has come and he has hugged me. But on another level, he was worried. He was worried that now that I have got this favor from the Lord, I am going to become a proud person. I'm going to think that, because everybody around will say that, this is the man, this is the Brahmin that Mahaprabhu has hugged and has cured. And he said, I am going to become so proud. And he begged Mahaprabhu that, what has happened is not right, because I'm now worried that in my pride, I will forget that I am your servant. And at this time, Mahaprabhu said to him that will never happen to you if you constantly chant the holy name of the Lord and spread the glories of the holy name and my name, like that. So anyway, so the whole point, what I was trying to say is that how a Vaishnava sees the super soul in every living entity. We are not going to copy what... We are not going to copy what Vasudeva Vipra did, but this is just an example of how a Vaishnava is able to see the super soul in each and every living entity and shows compassion to each and every living entity. So the yogi is at that stage. So I think I will stop now. And if there are any questions or comments, realizations, please do unmute yourselves and share, so you all can get some realizations. Okay, there's no questions, no comments. Everybody is satisfied with this verse? Okay, there is a comment on chat. There is just one soul per body. Yes, that is right. There is one soul. And can we think of the super soul as a thought of compassion in us? A lot of people, before they come to Krishna consciousness, Surabhi Mataji, do kind of think of, when we talk about conscious, our conscious is telling us this is right and this is wrong and whatever else. Actually, that is the super soul. So we have to get in tune with the super soul and then we can hear it. So yes, like you're saying, when not in tune with this thought, we can act without empathy or compassion. That is exactly correct. Because once you're in tune with the super soul, hopefully you will do the right things, because the super soul is constantly trying to guide you, and that is your conscious. In that sense, we say it is the conscious, but that is actually the super soul. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Anybody else? Any questions or comments?
Okay. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Hema Mataji.
Thank you so much for sharing the wonderful pastime of Vasudeva Vipra. I love that pastime. Yeah. It also reminded me of Jagannath Das Babaji's pastimes, where he used to have the dogs of, because they were dham dogs, to come and eat in his plate. Yes. And one time the servant stopped the dogs from coming. And he would not accept the meal. He says, unless the dogs come and share the food with me, only then I will accept my prasad. Mm. And then he wanted rotis made by the person who was sweeping the dham. And they said, why do you want that? And he said, because he is covered in the dust of the dham. So basically, he didn't differentiate between a dog and a street cleaner. He just saw the super soul within them and wanted to honor that. Mm. So
yes, thank you, Hema Mataji. We have so many such personalities, isn't it? Like we also have Shivananda Sen in Mahaprabhu's Leela, where he took the dog along with him for the yatra when he was going to Jagannath Puri. You remember that story where Shivananda Sen, because Shivananda Sen was responsible for looking after the devotees who would go every year for the yatra from Bengal to Orissa. And one such time, a dog accompanied them. And rather than, just, shooing away the dog, he took the dog with him. And eventually the dog was lost and he was wondering where the dog has gone. But when he reached Puri, he saw that Mahaprabhu was actually giving his remnants to the dog. And then the dog obviously was liberated. And, it is said that the next day he was nowhere to be seen because he was liberated. So we do see such examples that, where we can see that how these personalities were able to go beyond seeing the material body and could see the super soul in every living entity.
Yes, Madhu.
It's easy to hear, but it's so difficult to apply. It's so difficult for each. I mean, I'm talking about myself, to be able to constantly think that the super soul is in this person, and also to constantly think that all of us are controlled by this modes of material nature. And so to be compassionate, to have empathy, to understand why somebody may be doing something, and to still accept it and be loving is a really high stage, and I should aspire for it.
No, I think all we can do is take shelter of these personalities, their lotus feet, and meditate on their qualities.
Yes.
That's
yes.
Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful class.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay,
Mataji.
Sorry, Mataji. Yes, go on.
No, so wonderful. I'm not keeping well, but still, I just joined because a long time I'm hearing from you. And Mataji, I wanted to ask, when you said about compassion, last sentence, what you said. Sometimes if you see a devotee is acting this way with someone else, even you go and say, why we do that? The person will leave, and he might leave Krishna consciousness if this happens. No, this is our decision. What can we do? We go on like that. It's honestly speaking, total heartbreak and very disappointing. We just read only in Srila Prabhupada cried one person. It doesn't matter you chant 1 round or 16 rounds. So how can we really, if you see such things, how can you still be enthusiastic? How it is that you understand the conditioning? Only we will be Bhakti Shastri, we will be the top learned. But if you don't apply that little compassion, if you become compassion, they turn it saying, don't be sentimental. So it's so very, very disappointing, because just 50 years, if this is our mood, what will happen?
Nitai Mataji, we must not give up hope, because we also, on the other hand, we also see that we do have a lot of people who are so compassionate.
Yes.
So when I started my journey, I used to have exactly the same feelings as you did, because, I used to also feel that, why are people like that? And why do they do this? We come into a spiritual movement because we want to get away from this material. If you're going to see the same thing over here, what is different? I had the same thoughts and the same questions. And when I spoke to some senior devotees, some of the things that they said really made sense to me. And now I am in a position where these things don't affect me as much. The reason being, and what was told to me was a couple of things. One is that all of us are conditioned. If we wouldn't be conditioned, we wouldn't be here, right? All of us, ISKCON is a hospital. All of us are in different stages of illnesses, but we are not cured, because if we were cured, we wouldn't be here again. Right? So understanding, see, this is where compassion comes in. I have to be compassionate towards the person who is, according to me, again, because this could be just how I am looking at it. I have my own conditioning. But if I'm thinking that this is wrong, I have to be compassionate that there is something that is driving him to do this. It's not that he wants to do it, but he's being controlled by the modes of the material nature because he is conditioned. So all that I can do is I can pray. And the other thing that I can do is I can pray really sincerely that I am never in that kind of position where I am doing something like this. So like, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj says a wonderful thing, which a couple of years back when I used to hear it, I used to think, I don't know how it is possible, but he says in his lectures, in his classes, he says, every situation you can learn something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Now I will tell you about my example. When I was hearing this, so obviously this is a few years back, and I used to think, all right, every situation. So, I used to question myself, and it's so funny, but I'll tell you this, and I don't know if it'll help all of you, but it helped me. So when I was working full time, I used to I had to change 2 trains because I was working in the city. And I used to take the Northern Line from Bank Station. And at Bank Station, I had this specific coach that I needed to get in, the specific door that I would get in from, always, right? And I had to be the first person. Now, it's not always very crowded. Sometimes it is crowded. I was willing to leave one train, let one train go, and I'll take the next one. And then one day I was thinking, what should I be learning from this situation? And what I learned from this situation is this thing that I want to control. Two things I learned. One is that I want to be the controller here, that I have to stand here. I have to get in on this particular coach. I have to get in from this particular door. I have to be the first person. So I was trying to control too many things. Yeah. And the second thing I learned was the attachment for such a mundane thing. Why am I attached to the fact that I need to do this? Why can't I just get on the train and get home? The train is going to Edgware. I'm going to get there anyways. How does it matter? So you see, the point is that when you listen to these things, sometimes it doesn't make sense because you don't know. But over a period of practice, you kind of start to realize this is what it means. This is what is being said that I have to learn. So when I see somebody doing something like this, which I think is not right, benefit of doubt always, compassion to the person who's doing it. And third is lesson learned. I hope and pray that I am not in that position where I'm doing something like this. That's how I look at it. Because on the other side, we do have lots of wonderful, wonderful devotees who go out of their way to make everybody feel comfortable. And we can see it at the manor. On Saturday, I was there for some other service, but I saw there were 70 devotees who literally were it was their first visit, I think, to the manor, and they were approached by our Sankirtan devotees during the December marathon, and they took interest in Krishna consciousness, and there were 70 devotees who were there who've never heard of Krishna conscious philosophy or whatever else, and they were being looked after, they were being given prasad, and our leaders spoke to them. So it's not like everybody was at a level where they were all at different levels. But what I'm trying to say is that there are people who are trying to get a lot of people into Krishna consciousness. So we do have that also.
Exactly. All the people who attended, I heard in the class today, Divyanam Prabhu said, they all wanted to give a donation for the whole festival. Yes. That is so kind, because that's a reciprocation.
Yes.
It's what I was saying. It's not only disappointing for me. Okay, for me, it's okay. I can learn. But for the other person, may not be able to accept it.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So it will be difficult for the other person, because one person less means it is a big loss.
Yes. But also Nitai Mataji, we have to bear in mind that everybody is on their own journeys, and we don't know whether it was a loss to ISKCON or it was a gain to that person, because he's not ready as yet for this journey. And Krishna is looking after everybody. Each and everybody Krishna is looking after. And when the time is right, he will come into it, because we know of so many people who born in Vaishnava families but are not Vaishnava themselves, or are at least it is not externally manifesting right now. So it's okay, it's fine.
I really like your point, what you said. I shouldn't be doing such act. I like, because this is very important,
Yes. I was taught this by my mentors. Whenever I, like you, would have these kinds of, thoughts, and I would be very disheartened. And when I would say such things to my mentors, my mentor said to me that you should just learn from this, that you don't do such things. And I said,
exactly.
That makes sense.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your wonderful
experiences
and things. Hare Krishna.
There's a question here by Drishti Mataji. If everything is Krishna's energy, then what's the difference between a material energy and spiritual energy? Material energy is the Maya, where when we want to be independent of Krishna, when we are not willing to serve him, when we are not willing to accept that my identity is to be a servant of Krishna, and when I want to enjoy independently, then Krishna creates this material world wherein we come under the influence of Maya Devi. That is the material energy. And in opposed to that, if we are willingly and lovingly want to serve Krishna, then we will come under the influence of the spiritual energy. Because love cannot be forced. Love has to be, it should come from within, where there is no force. So Krishna wants that for all of us. So it's exactly like how you're put in a prison to understand that you're making a mistake. But when you realize that you made a mistake, then you are free to go and live in as, with freedom in the outside world. So when we come to a realization that I am eternally the servant of Krishna, and that is my identity, and that is what I want to do, then we are eligible to enter the spiritual world and come under the influence of the spiritual energy. So that's the difference between material and spiritual energy. And we are the marginal energy of Krishna. And we are always, I've given this example earlier, if you're taking a walk on the beach, sometimes the water touches your feet and sometimes it recedes. Like that, sometimes we are under the influence of the material energy, sometimes we are under the influence of the spiritual energy. So when we come to Krishna consciousness, we have to pray that we are constantly taking shelter of the spiritual energy of the Lord. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji.
I hope that makes sense, Drishti Mataji. Then we have Surabhi Mataji saying, just studying the scriptures generate empathy is not true, not talking about any religion or organization in particular. A common man with not much knowledge can sometimes be much more sensitive and have empathy. That's just my life experience, but all credit to those who study text in any religion. Yes, Surabhi Mataji, a common man will be sensitive and have empathy, but bear in mind, like we have discussed many times, just by being empathetic, by being compassionate and being sensitive, all that you will be doing is collecting credits for pious activities, but you're still not breaking out of the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. And scriptures or spiritual things is teaching you how you can get out of this cycle. What we want to do is neither collect credits for good activities nor collect debits for bad activities. We don't want credit or debit. We want zero balance. What we want to do is get out of the cycle, go back to where we actually belong. So yes, they may be sensitive, they may have empathy, but if there is no backing of the scriptures or there is no identification of your real self, your spiritual self, then this will only give you pious activities. At most, it will take you to the heavenly planets. But as soon as your quota of pious activities is over, you will fall back down onto earth. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. So it's basically compassion with no attachment. That's what you need to focus on. Is that it?
No, you need to have compassion with attachment to the level that this is Krishna's part and parcel. So always keeping Krishna in the center. So the attachment is to Krishna. There is attachment, but that attachment is to Krishna. That attachment is not to anything else except Krishna. So attachment is in relation to Krishna, that this living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. And that is why I am attached to this living entity. And that is why I want to serve this living entity. So that like I keep saying, it's just the consciousness that has to change.
Okay, sorry, I'm a bit confused now because we need to detach and detach. And now you're saying you have to attach. Right. Sorry, it's a bit...
So try and understand this. When we talk about detachment, does that mean that we have no empathy or compassion? No. Detachment means to understand that this is not mine. My attachment to my family is on a bodily level, that this is my husband, this is my children. But when I detach myself from the bodily attachments, but attach myself on a spiritual level, in the sense that this person here is a devotee of the Lord. These children, they are Krishna's children. All these people around me are part and parcel of Krishna. So I want to serve them. I want to attach myself to them because they are part of Krishna. So you see the thought process. There is one thought where I'm very selfish, where I'm selfishly thinking, this is my husband, my children, my mother, my father. And the other thought process is, this here is Krishna's children. This here is, part and parcel of Krishna. That's the difference. And so when you develop the attachment on that level, then that attachment is the best thing that you could ever do, because you're attaching to Krishna in that sense. You get it?
Trying to understand. Thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, there's another question. Is there any difference in your perspective between the Atma and the Super Soul? Aren't they one and the same? No. So the Atma is, how do I explain this to you? So let's just say that the Atma is one word. Sorry. Haribol? Shora is trying to call. Sorry, that was just my son trying to call us. Okay, so the Atma is an individual living entity. Okay, the Super Soul is within each and every living entity. But imagine this, that the Atma is single. He is one. The Super Soul is in each and every one of us. So the Paramatma is in me, is in you, is in, in your husband, wife, children, everybody. That's the difference. So the Atma and the Super Soul. And that is what is explained in this particular verse. When I did if you go back to the slide where it says the difference between the soul and the Super Soul, it makes sense, because the soul is a very, very tiny part. It is part of Krishna, but it is just one single tiny part of Krishna. Whereas the Super Soul is in every living entity. The example of where we have different fields and the farmers are growing different crops. So let's say that this body is a field, the crop is the soul inside, right? The king is the owner of all these fields. So the king knows exactly what is happening in each field of activity. So like the Super Soul, the Paramatma knows what is going on in my body. Likewise, he knows what is going on in your body. But the soul does not know what's happening in your body. Like, let's say I am pinching myself right now. You cannot feel it, but the Paramatma can feel it. Paramatma can feel when I'm pinching myself. The Paramatma can also feel if you're going through anything. So the Paramatma knows everything. In each field, he knows everything that is happening. I hope that kind of makes sense. Okay. All right.
Yes, Mataji, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Sorry, my micro is not working. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Madhu Kumari. Wonderful class. It's really.
Palika Mataji, I'm hearing your voice after so many weeks. So nice to hear you.
Thank you. I'm trying to make it because of my health. I
know.
Trying
to have you. I hope you're getting better, Mataji.
Thank you. Yes, it'll take time, but I'm getting there. Thank you very much. Thank
you. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Although I listen all the time next day or but, to be on this, it takes me a little bit of discipline actually. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Okay, if no other questions, it is 5 to 9, so quite late. So maybe we can stop here and I'll see you again soon. Vanchakalpatrubhascha
Devyo namo namah.
Krishna. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.